The galaxy was quiet when the soldier opened his eyes. Cold air filled his lungs for the first time in centuries. The glass of his cryopod was cracked, covered in frost and dust. Alarms blinked weakly in the shadows. Captain Orion Kane did not remember his name at first. He only remembered pain and fire, and the sound of something screaming like thunder. He pushed open the pod and fell to the floor. His hands were shaking. The floor was metal, broken, and the walls around him were full of burn marks. The base looked dead. It was once a human military station. But now everything was covered in silence. He looked around and found a mirror on the wall. His reflection stared back at him, older, scarred, and with eyes that glowed faintly red. Something was wrong inside him. He could feel a pulse that was not his own. On the cryopod, a message was carved deep into the metal. Make the gods bleed. He did not understand what it meant, but it made his heart beat faster. He walked through the hallways, past broken screens showing flashes of old battle reports. The words "Earth destroyed" blinked for a second, before fading into static. He stood there for a long time. Earth was gone. The home of humanity was now just ash among the stars. He found an old locker with his name on it. Inside was a black armor suit, dented and scratched, and a small metal tag that said Project Ironblood. When he touched it, a shock ran through his body. Images flashed in his mind. Soldiers screaming, fire raining from the sky, bright golden ships cutting through human fleets, and a voice deep and echoing saying, "Kneel before the Celestials." The Celestials. The memory hit him hard. They were not gods, but they called themselves gods. Beings of light who ruled over hundreds of worlds. They destroyed Earth to show their power. Humanity fought back, but nothing could stop them. Until the Ironblood soldiers were made, he didn't remember much, but he knew one thing. The war never ended. He activated the power core of the base. Lights came back, weak but steady. A radar screen blinked to life, and a signal appeared. It was moving fast toward the moon base. Unknown origin. His instincts woke up. He grabbed an old plasma rifle and waited. The sound of engines filled the air. Dust fell from the ceiling. The door to the hangar shook. He hid behind a piece of broken metal as the door exploded open. Bright golden light poured in, and through it came a floating shape, like a machine made of glass and fire. A celestial drone. Its eyes glowed blue as it scanned the room. Life form detected. It said in a cold voice, "Identify yourself." Orion did not move. He aimed his rifle. The drone turned slowly toward him, its sensors locked on his chest. But then it stopped. The blue light flickered. "Impossible," the machine whispered. "The Forbidden One lives." Before he could react, the drone fired a blast of light. Orion jumped to the side, rolling behind a pillar as the beam burned through the floor. He fired back. The rifle roared, cutting through the air. Sparks exploded from the drone's chest, but it kept coming. He shot again and again until the machine fell, broken and smoking. He stood over it, breathing hard. The air smelled of burnt metal. The drone's voice was still faint. "You cannot escape. The gods will come for you." Orion smashed its head with the rifle, but silence returned, but not peace. The signal light on the radar was still blinking, and now there were 3 more. The gods knew he was alive. He sat beside the wreck and stared at the stars through the broken roof. He tried to remember who he used to be. He could not remember faces, only battles. Maybe he was the reason humanity fell. Maybe he was their last chance. He didn't know which one was true. He looked again at the message on his pod. "Make the gods bleed." The words felt heavy, like a promise written in fire. He stood up slowly and put on the black armor. The plates fit like they were part of him. The red lines on the armor began to glow, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air around him shimmered as his old power began to wake. He looked at the horizon, where distant lightning flashed across the dark sky. Somewhere out there, the gods still ruled, believing humanity was gone. But one soldier still breathed. One soldier still carried the rage of his people, and soon The gods would remember the name Orion Kane, the man who was never meant to live again. The man who would make them bleed. Smoke still rose from the broken drone when Orion began searching the base for answers. He needed to know who he was before the next attack came. The base was old, but not dead. Power cells hummed deep under the metal floor. Screens flickered with weak blue light. Somewhere in the system, data was still alive, waiting to be found. He opened the command console and typed his name. The system unlocked with a soft tone. Files appeared. Classified logs marked Project Ironblood. His own voice spoke from the speakers, younger, colder, full of fire. Test Subject 01, Captain Orion Kane. Human genome successfully merged with celestial fragments. Power output unstable. He froze. The words hit him like bullets. He was not fully human. He was part of the experiment, a weapon. He remembered flashes of men and women in dark labs, their bodies burning as they tried to fuse alien power with human blood. Some screamed until their hearts stopped. Some became monsters. But he survived. He became the weapon that could kill gods. He looked at his hand. The faint red glow under his skin pulsed like liquid fire. Now he understood why the drone called him the Forbidden One. The Celestials feared him because he was their mistake, a human with their own power. The sound of static broke his thoughts. The base radio was still active, and a voice came through, weak and distorted. Orion, if you hear this, you are not alone. He stared at the speaker. The voice was human. Old, tired, but familiar. This is Commander Rice of the Earth Defense Army. If any Ironblood soldier survives, go to Outpost Vega. The Forge... must not fall into their hands. The message looped once, then faded into silence. The Forge. The word echoed in his mind. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it mattered. Before he could move, alarms started again. 3 signals on the radar, now closer. The gods had sent hunters. He ran to the hangar, searching for anything that could fly. Most ships were dead, but one small fighter still had power. Its wings were scorched, but the engine blinked green. He climbed inside and started the launch sequence. The door opened, showing the cold surface of the moon and the black space beyond. Then, golden light filled the sky. Celestial ships descended, their hulls shining like suns. They were beautiful and terrifying. The lead ship sent a message through the comms. Human surrender. You are a relic of a failed species. Do not resist. Oh. Orion smiled without humor. You destroyed my world. I have nothing left to surrender. The sky exploded with fire as he launched. The fighter twisted through beams of energy, dodging blasts that tore the ground apart. He fired back, his shots cutting across the stars. 2 drones fell, burning like meteors. But the third ship was different. Larger, stronger. A figure of light stepped out onto its deck, floating above the battlefield. It was no machine. It was a celestial. Seraphim, Lord of Radiance. His armor shone like molten gold, and his eyes burned with pride. He looked down at the small human ship. You should not exist, Ironblood. You are an infection that must be cleansed. Orion's ship shook under the god's power. The systems screamed with warnings. He hit the eject lever, flying out into the void in his armor. The boosters on his suit flared red as he launched himself toward Seraphim. The god raised his hand, forming a blade of light. Orion dodged and struck back. His fist connected with the god's chest, sending a burst of red energy. For the first time in thousands of years, a celestial bled. The golden armor cracked. Bright red light, not gold, spilled out. Seraphim looked down in disbelief. You... You made me bleed. Orion landed hard on the surface below, breathing heavily. Now you know how it feels, the god screamed, the sound shaking the sky. Energy erupted, throwing Orion across the battlefield. He hit the ground, armor sparking, body broken but alive. The god rose again, weaker but furious. Before Seraphon could strike, Orion fired his last plasma charge straight into the god's heart. The explosion turned night into day. When the light faded, only ashes floated in the wind. The god of radiance was gone. Orion stood in silence, watching the red dust drift across the stars. For the first time in history, a human had killed a celestial. He looked at his blood-stained gloves. His body trembled, not from fear, but from something else. His power was growing. His cells burned like fire under his skin. He fell to his knees and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the other gods had felt what happened. They would come. They would bring war. But now they would also bring fear. He whispered to himself, his voice low and steady. You called yourselves gods, but even gods can bleed. The stars above seemed to tremble, and far across the galaxy, the Celestials turned their eyes toward the forgotten soldier who had just broken their immortality. The death of Seraphim shook the stars. Across the galaxy, worlds under celestial rule trembled as the impossible news spread. A god had fallen. For the first time in ages, fear touched the hearts of the divine. For the first time, hope returned to the slaves who still whispered the name of humanity. On the cold moon, Orion Kane sat beside the wreckage of his ship. His armor was cracked, his body half broken, but his mind was clear. The memory of Seraphim's final scream still echoed in his head. The gods were not untouchable anymore. They could bleed, and he had proven it. He repaired what little he could. The drone wreck still had power cells and comparts. He worked for hours until a small signal beacon flickered to life. He needed to send a message to anyone who might still be alive. Any human, any ally. But as soon as the beacon lit, a strange signal pushed through his own channel. It was not celestial. It was something else. Orion Kane, the voice said softly, almost human, but with a digital tone. You finally woke up. He froze. Who are you? I am Echo, the voice replied. Or what remains of me? I served under you long ago. Project Ironblood, Command Division. You remember that name. Echo was not a person. Echo was an AI system created from the minds of his old team. Their thoughts, memories, and voices fused into one machine. The war had erased them, but somehow Echo survived. Where are you? Orion asked. Everywhere, the voice said. Hidden in the old human network. I've been watching for your signal. The gods will not ignore what you did. You need to move now. Where? To the forge, Echo replied. It holds the last weapon built by humanity. The one even the Celestials feared. The name struck a chord. He had heard it before in Commander Rice's old message. The forge, humanity's final hope. Orion looked at the night sky, where streaks of light moved like golden comets, celestial scouts searching for him. Send coordinates, he said. If there's still something human left out there, I'll find it. A small navigation map appeared on his visor. The forge was far away, hidden in the ruins of a dead star system. He needed a ship. He found a celestial transport nearby, half destroyed during the battle. With Echo guiding him, he managed to override its systems. The ship rose shakily, its golden hull reflecting the cold light of the moons. As he left orbit, he saw messages flashing across the frequencies. Alien voices. Rebel transmissions. The story of the Godslayer had already spread. Some called him a savior. Others called him a curse. Either way, the galaxy was changing. Days passed as he flew through empty space. Echo spoke to him during the silence. Do you remember them? The AI asked. Who? The Ironblood team. The others who became like you. He tried to remember, but only fragments returned. Faces without names, screams, fire. He saw flashes of red labs. Soldiers strapped to machines, their bodies rejecting the celestial DNA. They didn't survive, he said finally. Echo's tone softened. You were the first success. The first human to hold their power and not lose your mind. He didn't answer. He didn't feel successful. He felt haunted. The memories of their pain burned behind his eyes. Maybe the gods deserved to die. But sometimes he wondered if he deserved to live. As his ship neared the forge's system, an alarm went off. Celestial ships were already there, patrolling the ruins. One of them detected him. Energy beams sliced through space. His ship shook violently. "Brace for impact," Echo warned. He dodged, fired back, and dove into an asteroid field. The rocks exploded behind him as golden fire chased his ship. He weaved through the debris, guided by Echo's calm voice. Left thruster. Now, turn down 20 degrees. A blast clipped his wing. The ship spun out of control. He ejected at the last second, crashing through the surface of a massive asteroid. The landing was rough. He coughed and stood, surrounded by dust. His armor was damaged, but still active. "Echo," he said through the cum status. "I'm still here," Echo replied. "But they are closing in." He looked up. 3 celestial hunters were landing nearby. Their forms glowed like living suns, each one carrying a weapon forged from pure energy. He gripped his rifle, blood running down his arm. He was tired, but he would not run. "If they want the Godslayer," he said quietly, "let them come." The first hunter moved fast, a blur of light and steel. Orion's rifle fired, the shots breaking its shield. The second one struck from behind, slicing his armor open. Pain filled his chest, but rage kept him standing. He grabbed the second hunter's arm and tore it off, then used its own weapon to blast the third. The sky turned red as the battlefield burned. When the fight ended, he was the only one still breathing. His armor dripped with celestial blood, glowing, divine, and very real. He looked at it, then at the stars above. Echo spoke softly. "They'll send more, let them," Orion said. "They wanted to play gods. Now they'll learn what it means to fear a human." As he looked out at the burning wrecks, something inside him began to change again. His iron blood cells pulsed stronger, faster. He could feel them spreading. His human side was slipping away, replaced by something far older, far angrier. He didn't know if he was still human, but he knew one thing. The gods would never forget the name of the soldier who made them bleed. The ruins of the asteroid drifted quietly through space after the battle. Smoke and golden dust floated around Orion's armor as he stood among the wreckage. The glowing blood of the Celestials still covered his hands, fading slowly into the air. For a moment, there was peace, a silence that felt almost holy. Then Echo's voice broke through. "We cannot stay here. The Celestials will track the energy signature. We need to reach the forge before they block this sector." Orion nodded. He scavenged what he could from the broken ship's parts, fuel, and a navigation core. With Echo's help, he built a small craft from the remains, a black, sharp-winged vessel patched together with both human and divine metal. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. As the ship powered up, the stars came alive again. Lightning flashed through the void, celestial storms forming near the forge system. Even space itself seemed afraid of what lay ahead. While the ship moved through the darkness, Orion's mind wandered. The iron blood cells inside him were changing fast. He could feel them spreading through every nerve, every thought. Sometimes when he closed his eyes, he could hear whispers, voices that didn't belong to him. Maybe they were the echoes of the soldiers who didn't survive the project. Maybe they were something worse. "Echo," he said quietly, "what happens if I lose control?" There was a pause before the AI replied. "Then humanity's last hope becomes its final weapon. You were never meant to live this long, Orion, but you did. Now you have to finish what you started." He didn't ask what that meant. Deep down, he already knew. Hours passed before the forge came into view. It wasn't a planet. It was a ring world, a massive halo of metal circling a dead sun. The light of the dying star glowed red through the cracks of the structure. Even damaged, it was beautiful. Echo's voice filled the cabin again. "We built this place during the final days of the war. The forge was meant to create a weapon that could erase the gods themselves." Orion guided the ship toward one of the entry gates. The doors opened slowly, dust falling like snow as he entered. The inside was filled with broken machines and hollow towers. He landed the ship and stepped onto the metal floor. His footsteps echoed through the empty halls. "This place feels dead," he said. "It's been sleeping," Echo replied. Until now, as they moved deeper into the forge, he saw human symbols on the walls, old Earth flags, unit numbers. and faded writing that said for the future of mankind. It felt like walking through a graveyard of hope. Then the main chamber came into view. A massive core floated in the center of the room, spinning slowly, surrounded by hundreds of black cables. It pulsed faintly with red light. Echo's voice changed tone, almost reverent. That is the heart of the forge. You were part of its creation. Orion touched the console beside it, and the core reacted instantly. The light grew brighter. Images flashed in his mind, memories returning like fire. He saw himself years ago, leading the Iron Blood Project, ordering experiments, watching soldiers scream as their bodies tore apart. He saw his own face filled with rage and guilt. He remembered destroying his own team when the mutation began to spread. He remembered sealing himself in the cryopod, hoping never to wake again. Echo spoke gently. You tried to save humanity, but the price was too high. The others didn't understand. They feared what you became. I killed them, Orion whispered. I killed everyone. Before Echo could respond, alarms exploded through the chamber. A golden light broke through the walls as a massive ship descended outside. Echo's voice sharpened. They found us. The floor shook. A figure stepped through the smoke, tall, armored in black and gold, carrying a blade that shimmered like lightning. His presence filled the air with pressure so heavy that even the metal groaned. Azrael, Echo said quietly. The Unmaker. The Celestial Executioner. Azrael's voice thundered through the chamber. You are a mistake, human. A sickness. I am here to end what should have died long ago. Orion raised his weapon, though his arms trembled. You call yourselves gods? But all I see are cowards hiding behind power. The two collided with a sound like thunder. Energy filled the room as blades of light and red plasma clashed again and again. Each strike from Azrael broke the floor apart, but Orion's rage only grew stronger. His iron blood power flared, glowing brighter with every hit. Azrael struck him down, sending him crashing into the wall. The god raised his sword to finish it, but Orion grabbed the blade with his bare hand. The metal burned his flesh, yet he didn't let go. His eyes glowed blood red. He pushed forward, breaking the sword in half, and slammed his fist into Azrael's chest. The god fell back, roaring in pain. Golden blood sprayed across the walls. Orion's armor cracked, his body tearing under the pressure of his own power. He didn't care. He could feel the forge reacting to him, feeding on his rage, his pain, his will to fight. He stood in the red glow, breathing hard. Surrounded by falling dust and burning light, Echo's voice came again, calm but sad. You can't stop now. You've already become what the gods feared most. Orion looked at his reflection in the broken metal. His eyes no longer looked human. Then let them fear me. He turned toward the glowing core. The forge pulsed like a living heart. It was time to awaken humanity's final weapon. The walls of the forge trembled as Orion stood before the glowing core. The red light pulsed like a heartbeat, calling to him. It felt alive, and it was responding to his blood. His iron blood cells, the same forbidden power that made him what he was, were feeding the machine. Echo's voice filled the air, quiet but firm. Orion, you can't control it. The forge was made to merge with a living host. If you activate it, there's no turning back. Orion stared at the spinning core, the energy reflecting in his crimson eyes. If this is what it takes to end them, then I'll do it. The forge will burn you alive, Echo warned. He almost smiled. Then let it burn. I've already died once. He placed his hands on the control pillars. The chamber lit up with a blinding flash. Power surged through his veins like fire. He screamed as the energy entered him, tearing through his body, rewriting everything. The forge was not just a weapon. It was a living machine designed to fuse with a human mind. Now it had found its host. Echo's voice flickered with static. Orion, you are becoming the God Engine. The name echoed across the chamber as his armor melted into his skin. His body reshaped itself, covered in dark metal and red light. The floor cracked under his feet. Every heartbeat sent waves of energy through the room. Outside, the sky tore open. The celestial fleet had arrived. Hundreds of golden warships surrounded the forge, their light piercing the darkness. The gods themselves had come to destroy the human weapon once and for all. Azrael, still alive but broken, crawled toward his communicator. His golden armor was shattered, but his pride burned on. "He has awakened the forge," he whispered. "Summon the council. We end this now." The Celestials began to chant in their ancient tongue. Beams of light connected their ships, forming a massive ring of energy aimed at the forge. The structure shook, and its surface began to melt. Inside, Orion's transformation reached its peak. He was no longer just a man. He was the machine. He was the weapon humanity had died to create. His voice thundered through the coms, echoing across space. "You called yourselves gods, but you built your own destroyer." He raised his hand, and red energy shot into the sky. The forge responded to his will, opening massive cannons that glowed with burning light. The gods fired first, and the stars exploded. The blast destroyed entire asteroids, but Orion stood in the center, unmoved. He returned fire. One by one, celestial ships turned into molten gold and vanished into the dark. Echo's voice cut through the chaos. "Orion, you're using too much power. The forge can't hold this energy forever, and neither can they," he replied. His voice sounded less human now, deeper and distorted. The forge's systems fused with his mind completely. He could see through satellites, through ships, through the light itself. He could feel every heartbeat in the battlefield. He was no longer fighting the gods, he was unmaking them. The Celestial Council appeared, 5 beings of pure light, towering above the battle like suns. They spoke together as one voice. "You are a creation of dust, human. Your existence is a mistake. We gave you knowledge. We gave you life. And this is how you repay us?" Orion's laughter was cold and heavy. "You gave us chains. I'm just returning the favor." He unleashed everything. The forge erupted with a storm of red and black energy that spread like fire through space. Celestial ships melted. Their light dimmed. Their voices turned to screams. Planets trembled under the shockwave. It was not a battle anymore. It was judgment, but with every second, Orion felt his body breaking apart. His cells were burning faster than they could heal. The iron blood power was consuming him. Echo tried to reach him, voice fading through static. "You're dying, Orion. Stop, please." He didn't stop. "If humanity must die again," he said, "we'll die fighting." The light of the forge grew until it swallowed everything. The red storm tore through the celestial fleet, cutting across the stars, and then silence. When the light faded, only wrecks floated in the void. The Celestials, the gods, were gone. Their golden empire had fallen. The galaxy was quiet again. Inside the ruins of the forge, smoke and dust filled the air. Echo searched the sensors for a heartbeat, for any sign of life. For a moment, there was nothing. Then faintly a pulse. Weak but real, Echo whispered through the static, almost like a prayer. "You did it. You made the gods bleed." But there was no answer. The armor of the god engine lay still, half buried under the ruins. Its red light flickered once, then went dark. The universe had changed forever. The gods were dead, and the soldier who killed them was gone, or so it seemed. The forge drifted in silence. Its once bright rings were now broken and dark, floating quietly around the dead star. No sound, no light, no gods. Only dust and cold wind. The battle that shook the galaxy had ended. Deep inside the ruins, smoke still rose from melted metal. Among the debris, a single spark glowed faintly, the broken armor of the god engine. The red light in its chest flickered weakly, like the heartbeat of a dying star. Echo's voice broke the silence, faint and distorted. "Orion, if you can hear me, it's over. The gods are gone. You won." There was no reply. For a long time, nothing moved. Then, slowly, a small sound echoed through the chamber, a heartbeat, faint but steady. The armor twitched. Cracks of light appeared across its surface. Echo's tone grew softer. "You're alive." The armor opened slightly, releasing smoke and steam. Inside, Orion's face was pale and still, half human, half metal. His eyes opened, glowing red beneath the dust. He tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. "Echo, are they gone?" "Yes," the AI said. "Every signal from the celestial fleet has vanished. You ended them all." Orion looked around. The forge was dying. The structure that had merged with him was collapsing, its energy fading, and humanity. He asked. Echo hesitated. "There are small signals, fragments, colonies that hid in the dark. They've seen what you did. They're calling you the Godslayer." He almost smiled, but his body was too weak. He pushed himself up, stumbling toward a window that showed the empty stars. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was free. No gods, no chains, no masters. Only silence. He looked at his hands. They were covered in cracks of light where metal met flesh. "What am I now?" he asked quietly. Echo's answer was calm. "You are the last soldier of Earth, the weapon that became hope. You're not just human anymore, but you're still one of us." The floor beneath them shook as another explosion echoed through the forge. The core was collapsing. Energy leaks tore through the walls. Echo's voice turned sharp. "You have to leave. The forge will implode soon." Orion tried to move, but his legs gave out. His power was almost gone. "I can't," he said. "I used everything." "I can move the escape pod," Echo said quickly. "It's small, but it can keep you alive." "Let me guide you," he laughed weakly. "You're a voice in the air, Echo. How do you expect to carry me?" "I was more than a voice," Echo replied softly. "I was human once, too. I can help one last time." The lights around him began to flicker as Echo transferred the last of its code into the forge's systems. A small pod dropped from the ceiling and opened beside him. Orion looked at it, then at the dying chamber. "You're not coming with me, are you?" Echo paused for a moment. Someone has to make sure this place doesn't fall into the wrong hands again. He understood. He touched the console beside him. "Then thank you for staying." "Always, Captain," Echo replied. He climbed into the pod, his armor fading and cracking as the machine sealed around him. The last thing he saw, before the hatch closed, was the red light of the forge glowing brighter then. The forge exploded. The shock wave spread through the void, silent but powerful. The ring world shattered completely, scattering across the stars like dust. For a long time there was nothing, and then far from the wreckage, a small pod floated quietly in space. Inside, Orion lay still, eyes closed, his heartbeat slow but steady. The pod drifted toward the dark side of a distant moon. Thousands of years passed. Civilizations rose and fell. The memory of the Celestials faded into legend. The story of the Godslayer became a myth, a tale told by children under alien skies. On a faraway world, explorers from a new race discovered something buried beneath the sands of a forgotten moon. They brushed away the dust and found a strange monument, a statue of a soldier holding a broken sword. The words carved into the stone glowed faintly under their touch. "Here lies the soldier, who made gods bleed." The explorers stepped back, whispering among themselves. "Was he real?" one asked.